Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mack. You know, Q said, keep your eye on the ball. It's good advice, so it did.
Pick it up. Keep your eye on the ball. Keep your eye on... No. I mean...
Yeah, I don't know if it's helping. Come to think of it, I feel like I'm getting kind of cross-eyed. All right, John's on assignment, but we've got ourselves a professional counting team for your entertainment. Gentlemen, how many Q posts do we have today?
Give me 1, 2, 3, 4, but if you love me more, give me 5. Yeah, give me 5.
Well done, gentlemen, and smoothly done, I might add. 23:96, 2 minutes after the hour of 1 p.m., POTUS meeting Putin on 11/11. Now, what are the odds of that? Q, good question. What are the odds of that?
I'd say more like 1 out of a million.
Yes, sounds like there is a chance. This is from USAToday back on October 16th. Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin both plan to be in Paris on November 11th. So I guess POTUS and Putin planning to be in Paris. Probably. President Donald Trump and Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin both plan to be in Paris for a World War I commemoration next month. But officials said there is no formal meeting scheduled. We plan to fly to Paris on November 11th, said Putin aide Yuri Ushakov, according to the TASS news agency. Trump, criticized by lawmakers after his July summit with Putin in Helsinki, is also planning to attend events in Paris that weekend to mark the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War. While no formal bilateral meeting is planned between Trump and Putin, neither side has ruled out a more informal meeting on the sidelines of the Paris gathering. The two leaders held an impromptu meeting last November on the sidelines of an Asian economic summit in Vietnam. Trump and Putin also met in Hamburg last year and in Helsinki in July. The Helsinki session drew a firestorm of criticism after Trump appeared to support Putin's denials over the conclusions of U.S. intelligence agencies that Russia interfered in the 2016 election by hacking Democrats and pushing fake news. Trump later backtracked on those comments, saying he supported the American intelligence community, but he said he viewed the Putin meeting as a success and made clear he would seek another one. In July, Trump authorized an invitation to Putin to come to Washington this fall for a follow-up. The president later postponed the meeting amid criticism from Republicans about the images of a Trump-Putin conference right before the midterm congressional elections on November 6. In addition to Armistice Day, events on the Champs-Élysées, Trump and Putin also each plan to meet separately with French President Emmanuel Macron during their stay in Paris. Trump committed to the Paris trip after his plans for a big military parade in Washington, D.C. fell through. Okay, so 11/11, it looks like they are both going to be in Paris for Armistice Day. And not just Armistice Day, but the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War. What a great time. I wonder if they'll be having any parades at that time. Now, you remember originally POTUS wanted to have a parade in D.C., and of course that got the scaboch after the estimated cost rose an interesting 666%. Looked like there was a massive troll going on there with POTUS. Now, I'm not sure how this is going to go down. And again, like this article says, it looked like Putin was going to come right before congressional elections. But whatever it is, it looks like the deep state definitely do not want Trump and Putin to be meeting together. Q has spoken about 11/11 before. I want to take you back to September 27th, post 2288, particularly where Q adds on here regarding the midterm elections days prior. 11/11, what a wonderful day, assuming that there's something to really celebrate. Now, of course, that's Veterans Day, and like we just said, that is Armistice Day. So there will be lots of parades around the world going on regarding that. I'm not sure that we're necessarily talking about any kind of big military parade, but here Q was talking about the midterm elections, and of course, by the 11th, we'll have a much better idea of how that all plays out. Let's take you to 1357, May 13th. And this is where Anon said, Q is saying there won't be arrests until the justice system is cleaned out. That has to include state judges. Do you have any idea how long that will take? We are now looking at next year for the rest of POTUS judges to be confirmed. That's just federal judges, doesn't include state. And Q says, what must happen pre-11/11? Of course, we know that's the midterms. I also want to memorize you too that on the 5th there are going to be sanctions imposed on Iran. That's when that all begins. 1111 provided as strategic marker. Post midterms, red wave coming, strength, justice, Q. Okay, so for all of you who've been complaining that there haven't been any arrests, I would simply say I don't think Q's ever stated there were going to be those arrests really up until this time. This is what needed to happen. Q made it very clear that things need to happen pre-11/11. Now, I think after 11/11, I suppose if you want to have your criticisms, that makes a lot more sense. And you're welcome to not trust this plan, but for me, this seems very, very clear. This is our strategic marker, and this all needs to happen post midterms. I have a feeling that we're going to get a couple more bombshells in the next couple days leading up to midterms, seeing what's going on. I have a feeling that this whole issue at the border might be a smokescreen. Hard to know, but there is another reference to 11/11, and then, of course, we have this here from post 1, 2, 3, 4 on April 21st. Where Anon says, thank you. We are an existential threat to the establishment. Trusting the plan. Q says, America will be unified again. 11/11/18. Okay, well, those are some pretty bold words. And like I said, if you're a critic of Q, I suppose after 11/11/18, if nothing pops up, I suppose you have every right to complain. I'm not much of a big, fan of kind of calling out dates saying this and this is going to happen on this date because of all the numerology and all the different holidays and all the different history. All that stuff's really, really important, but at the same time, the world is watching this, so I think there's a lot of smoke screens being thrown around. But Q has been very, very clear that America will be unified again 11/11/18, so it means that something must be coming up in the next few days, I would imagine. Now, let me take you back to June 27th, post 1603. Q seems to be talking to the deep state here, saying, if you continue to proceed down this dangerous path, only know that we are prepared. You should know this based on earlier drops regarding Saudi Arabia, National Guard / military assets activate U.S. soil. Basically saying we're not playing around, and we showed that with how we dealt with the House of Saud. Well, the game is over when the public knows. When the public knows what? The fight to keep the lights off is all that matters to you. You will fail. The American people are awake. You lost control. Sheep no more. Okay, so the lights off regarding what? Because FISA hasn't really faced the left, has it? And their criminal candidates that are all running for the House or Senate or whatever doesn't seem to be phasing them, even though Project Veritas seems to be dropping bombs on candidate after candidate after candidate. They don't care. So what do we have to shine the lights on? Human trafficking? Would that wake them up? You underestimated their resolve and their ability to free think away from the pipeline narrative. We will declass. We will shine light. There is nowhere to hide. No amount of money, influence, or power can stop this. Our rights to secure and protect at all costs then become justified. Let me say that again. Our rights to secure and protect at all costs then become justified. It almost sounds like an attack or an invasion might be anticipated back then. We stand at the ready. Red wave, white squall, in God we trust, Q. And then Q adds on here saying, if you were smart, stupid, meaning that there were two ways to take this meeting here. You know what just occurred at the meeting in Russia. And we were talking about Trump and Putin in Helsinki. And of course, Bolton was out there talking with Putin too, actually closer to this. Attempts to frame Russia, POTUS, optics are failing and will soon be exposed. Well, that's all they have, right, are those optics. Look, if you talk to anybody on the left, you debate with anybody on the left, they still think that Trump is a traitor because he colludes with Putin, because they interfered with the elections, and that Trump is essentially Putin's puppet. We all know that's not the case. We know the real spying was more than likely being done in China, right? And then Q says the objective to keep POTUS away from Putin failed. Well, it did. They met a couple times, and it made the deep state nervous both times. As a matter of fact, they've come out and saying this was President Trump's lowest point in Helsinki, being all chummy and not confronting Putin about the meddling in the elections. Well, that's because we knew better, right? Bolton plus Putin should scare you. Enemies are allies. Well, Bolton is very, very hawkish, but he seems to be working pretty well with Putin. Now, Bolton just met with Putin a few days ago again regarding the INF treaty, pulling out of this another treaty that's decades old. Now, I don't know all the ins and outs of this treaty, but it seems to me like in the outward narrative, this is another reason to bang the war drums, basically Russia versus the USA. Now, this is going on all over the world. We have China amassing a lot of troops on their eastern borders. We have Russia building up some troops once again. A lot of conflict with Ukraine once again. And then, of course, we've got this Operation Trident Juncture going on out there in Norway, a massive, large-scale, multinational operation, which is primarily for the deploying and receiving of troops. It's basically a defense maneuver, but you could look at it a lot of ways. Now, in Russian media over the last few weeks, they've been banging the war drums too, saying that they think they're the object of this Operation Trident Juncture. Now, we don't really necessarily know that. So we have this operation going on. We've got China, we've got Russia banging the war drums, Iran, Ukraine, and this is all going down in Norway. So the rhetoric is there, but now we have this meeting coming up in Paris on Armistice Day, a day that's supposed to be peace, a day that Q is saying that the world is going to unite. What would they be uniting against? If we're not all going to war with each other, what are we going to war with? Q has always said that this cause would unite humanity. So would this coincide with our flooding of the border? Is this a massive, large-scale push to flood borders around the world that we're preparing for? I'm not really sure, but this seems to make some sense, particularly when Q says our rights to secure and protect at all costs then become justified. So let's move on here. Q says enemies are allies. Well, who are our perceived enemies? Be Putin, right? China, right? Evil has no place here. America is no longer for sale. The age of taxing our citizens across the world while entry to our markets is free is over. The world will unite in this cause. What cause would that be, right? Good versus evil, right versus wrong. And I can't help but think this has to do, once again, human trafficking, pedophilia, you name it. You know how it all basically goes. We've been talking about this at great length for a very, very long time. And if you're not familiar with this, please just check some of my last videos. But I think you see what's going on, right? So something needs to be, we need a light being shined on this sort of cause to unite the world, because right now the world is not united. And we're looking at a matter of days before 11/11. Q says forced immigration pushers will be exposed. The why. So there you go. That's what my thought is. Q says read the Bible. God wins. I think we're going to see what real evil is going on here with this forced immigration. I think we're seeing a lot of people on the left really start to reject immigration. We've seen it all throughout the EU. We know that Russia wants their autonomy. Now, I can't help but think that if they're able to make some sort of peace through all this, I don't know how this will all end up playing out, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see the United States and Russia working together, maybe to help Russia get this pipeline from Germany finally established. That's going to involve the cooperation with the Ukraine, which means that Russia and Ukraine are going to have to work some deals out. And I think in exchange for that, I would not be surprised if Putin finally gives us some clarity with what he's going to do in Syria and Iran. Essentially, right now, his interests are only financial there, and maybe that could be offset if we're able to work out this pipeline and they're able to get some energy sold. So I don't really know. That's just my take on it right now. You guys can let me know what you think down below. But that's what I've got for you so far. Let's move on. Post 2397, 16 minutes after the hour, 1 p.m. Q says, keep your eye on the ball, midterms and memes. I have a feeling this means a couple different things. Now, if you remember back at the Helsinki summit, Vladimir Putin handed President Trump the official soccer ball of the World Cup, which was an Adidas soccer ball, and saying that the ball is in your court. Well, we don't play football on a court. We play it on a football pitch, but maybe that was just his way of saying that we are ready to play the game, and now it's your move. Now, if you also remember, and I believe my video was entitled Keep Your Eye on the Ball. You can go back and look at it. We knew that this ball from Adidas actually hosted a tiny little microchip inside it. Now, this was no big deal. It was just for consumers. It was a small little microchip. Didn't have a lot of memory or anything like that. But it was a cool, kitschy little, thing for them to sell these soccer balls, these official soccer balls, right? But I think the grand gesture was more Putin handing the ball. Whether or not there was something actually in the ball or not, it's hard to know. Now, if you remember, there was one senator not long after my video, incidentally. I don't know if it was because of my video, but not long after my video, one Senator Lindsey Graham was saying, check that ball because Putin may have bugged it, and people were teasing him about that and da-da-da-da. Well, let's remember, too, that Putin and POTUS met in private. So I imagine that anything needed to be passed, it could have been passed then. No reporters were allowed. And, of course, the left went absolutely knucking futs over that, right? They were freaking out. So I imagine if anything really important needed to be exchanged, it would have been exchanged. But this ball was probably more significant in the gesture that Putin was willing, basically to cooperate or play ball, if you will. But I think Q here is saying keep your eye on the ball, midterms and memes, meaning we need to be focusing on doing our job, which is getting the memes out, making sure that more and more people, at the end of the day, midterms is what this is all about. Our plan doesn't move forward, or at least not nearly as easily, without midterms being in our pocket. And then we get these brackets open here. Excuse me, if I think I'm right here, I'm not really sure. I counted 45 spaces. I think that's the case. I could be wrong, but I think there was 45 spaces in there, 45 being, of course, Donald J. Trump. Remember, POTUS already ordered the D class. Yeah, if you remember, we already did this show, right? Now, we didn't get it all. We didn't get to see it, but POTUS did order the D class. And what happened? Rod Rowe pushed back hard. OIG tasked to review, determine sensitive info. And of course, that's Huber Horowitz, right? Horowitz, particular, OIG. OIG works with Huber. Important to remember. Huber reports directly to Sessions. Important to remember. Was the D class already cleared for release? Well, we know that they needed to determine sensitive info because we've got grand juries going on. And don't forget, Rosenstein, McCabe. As a matter of fact, anybody who signed off on those FISAs, Comey, Sally Yates, have a grand jury formed. And that's very, very big news not to forget. Was the gambit played by Rod Rowe to stall and delay post-election, banking on Dems winning the White House? Yeah, of course, he was being threatened with, all sorts of different things, saying if you don't do this, we're going to put you in contempt. It's going to be this and that. And Rod Rowe played every single card that he could to stall this, right? They wanted to get through midterms. POTUS, Air Force One, Rod Rosenstein. An enemy who feels safe and in control is an enemy who, and you can kind of finish what you want there, but I think that when you get an enemy to feel safe, that's when they're going to talk. That's when an enemy who becomes your friend or an enemy who starts to cooperate is going to be somebody who feels safe. They're going to feel like they can go ahead and relax and they can go ahead and do what they need to do. Now, it looks to me like it's very clear. POTUS aboard Air Force One was ordering Rod Rowe to order Mueller to go ahead and end this charade. And maybe it did. Doesn't mean they said anything, but maybe it already did. Q says that's important to remember. And I imagine that it must have ended, because if that's important to remember, that's a pretty big deal, right? Ending this investigation is a very, very big deal. You've got nothing, and now it's midterms. How do you navigate around installed blockade? Well, what was the blockade? Mueller was the blockade, designed to take in evidence needed to expose the deep state. Now, remember, all along, POTUS could have fired Rod Rosenstein. POTUS could have ended this, and he didn't. He allowed this to go on. And meanwhile, Mueller is just gathering more and more and more information. Now, we know that Mueller is very likely not a white hat, but that doesn't mean that Mueller's not cooperating. And I just want to make that point. It's very important. I'm not saying that he is. I'm just saying that it's very possible. Remember, President Trump met with Mueller one day before this all began. And we know it wasn't to extend him, because he was already extended longer than he was supposed to be. He needed to go. So why keep him on? What was he reconciling? Well, Q says right here, designed to take in evidence needed to expose the deep state. The DOJ block regarding Mueller's evidence ongoing investigation. Mueller, designed to limit POTUS's ability to maneuver. Well, that part has worked in a lot of ways, right? We've gone 2 years now into this investigation. Mueller, designed to stall for time until midterm elections to terminate all House and Senate ongoing investigations. Yeah, it's all about getting the House and the Senate back so that they can impeach Trump, so that they themselves don't get investigated. Mueller, designed to safeguard Democratic Party base false narrative regarding Russia collusion. Yeah, as long as Mueller's investigating something, they're going to assume that there's still some sort of Russian collusion. And that's why they don't want to see Trump meeting with Putin, because they're not really understanding what that means, right? Meanwhile, if you know there was no Russian collusion, you're not really seeing the threat anymore. And without that threat, the Democratic Party can't keep their base hating Trump. POTUS cheated, evil, sky is falling. Yeah, everything that possibly could go wrong has been going wrong, right? In effort to divide and mobilize for future protests, riots, threats, violence, false flags, etc. Yeah, if you don't hate President Trump, you're not going to riot in the streets. And that's what they need. So they need to pump the rhetoric. They need to pump the hate. Mueller, designed to provide fake news with ammunition to sway public opinion, obstruct foreign plus domestic agenda, fuel impeachment, removal, fuel anti-POTUS, division, prevent unity, etc. And it's all pretty much failed, right? We still have a very, very successful presidency going on. Mueller, designed to demonstrate to foreign players that old guard still pulls strings. And Mueller is a class example of the old guard, right? Comey, Obama, Clinton in particular. Mueller, designed to mobilize Democratic Party for midterm vote win. Yeah, if there's still a whole bunch of hate, maybe they'll turn out at the polls. Mueller, designed to push Democratic Party backers to donate. GoFundMe Democratic Party. And that's what they really need right now because all their money's been cut off. So they need to pull at your heartstrings so that you'll give them money. Mueller, designed as public outcry excuse should criminal charges be brought against them. Yeah, how can you bring charges against us when you're basically being investigated yourself? That's their battle cry. But we know that Trump is not being investigated. When the world knows that, it'll be a much different story. And the excuse is by saying we are being politically attacked because Mueller. Well, how do you remove install blockade? D-class, D-class, D-class. How do you navigate around installed corrupt FBI DOJ? You use a stealth bomber. And who's our stealth bomber? SESSION. That's right, the stealth bomber himself, Jeff Sessions. So essentially, this all hinges on midterms. Vote, vote, vote. And that is why Q says keep your eye on the ball. Now, I do think it's a reference to the soccer ball too, and I do believe that Russia knows all about 2016 election interference. I do feel at some point we're going to find out exactly what they know, what they know about Uranium One, probably a lot more than we ever thought. But at the end of the day, nothing happens if we don't get out there and vote, vote, vote. Let's move on. Post 2398, 9 minutes after the hour of 2 p.m. Democratic Party con. When you can't raise money organically through party, individual donations, voter base, you steal it from the American taxpayer and give it back to yourself in the form of campaign contributions.
How about that?
Yeah, how about that? Example 1, Planned Parenthood. And then it takes us to this link right here. U.S. government accountability offices. It says in the 3-year period, we examined federal agencies obligated about $27 billion in funding to organizations that provide preventative, reproductive, and diagnostic health care services in the United States or abroad. These include federally qualified health centers, International Planned Parenthood Federation, Marie Stopes International, and Planned Parenthood Federation of America. Most of the funding came from 2 agencies, the Department of Health and Human Services, about $20 billion, and the U.S. Agency for International Development, about $76 million. This is an update to our 2015 report. Okay, so you see what's up. Long time it's been that Planned Parenthood has been taking taxpayer money. Okay, and then they take that money and they use it for whatever else whenever they need it, especially right now during midterms when they need to use it for financing campaigns. $1.5 billion provided in taxpayer funding over a 3-year period. Case 1. Planned Parenthood spent $30 million. That was what they disclosed. The real estimate's closer to $65 million, so more than twice that, in taxpayer subsidies to influence the outcome of the 2018 midterm elections. Conclusion: should it be legal for a taxpayer, whether it be Democratic, Republican, or independent funded organization, to donate massive amounts of money to the Democratic Party in an effort to sway an election? No, if you ask me, I think everybody should have a cap. I mean, I think it's great if you can spend a bunch of money, but I think to keep it fair, you should have a cap. This should be based on ideas, not on how much money you can raise. And now I'm not exactly sure what this means here. Democratic insider term, I don't know if that's T-wash, meaning Washington taxpayers, or if they're talking about, I'm not really sure what that T-wash means. You can let me know what you think that is. But Q says, reread drops regarding Soros and taxpayer funding. Your hard-earned tax dollars at work. Vote, vote, vote. Yeah, Planned Parenthood is just another example. I mean, you've got the Red Cross, you've got the Clinton Foundation, you've got the John McCain Foundation, all these different foundations that take all this money from taxpayers, and they essentially pour it back into the same places using their same sources. And, of course, no better source than Soros right there, who funds just about every knuckleheaded event that you can imagine. So this kind of stuff has to stop, and I can't wait to see guys like Soros going down. But that's the con. That's the Democratic Party con. Let's move on. $23.99, 38 minutes after the hour of 2 p.m. We've seen this picture before. Regarding Robert Byrd, KKK member, from my first day in the Senate, I sought out his guidance, and he was always generous with his time and his wisdom. And as a Secretary of State, I continue to rely on his advice and counsel. Hillary Clinton. And there's Robert Byrd right there. And he was a Kleagle in a Klonsel of Klansmen of Kleagles. That's what their names were. They were all KL names. Kleagles and Klonsels. Who were the real racists? 2016 Democratic nominee for president of the United States. And this takes you to a Fox News link, and I'm not going to play it for you. You've probably already seen it. Hillary Clinton was being asked by this interviewer about the behavior of some Democrats, and she mixed up a story with Cory Booker. She was meaning to talk about Eric Holder, talking about going low and kicking them, and Hillary said, no, well, that was Eric Holder, excuse me. And she was like, oh yeah, I'm right, I'm sorry. And she's like, yeah, they all look alike. Now look, I'm going to be honest with you. I have a million things to dislike Hillary Clinton for. This one in particular wasn't one. I felt like it was kind of an off-the-cuff statement. She wasn't saying it so much to be racist. She was saying it as in, yeah, I know what you're going to say next. But it came off that way, didn't it? And I'm not saying it was right, of course. Like I said, there's a million reasons to hate Hillary Clinton. I don't particularly think that was one of them. But it just kind of exposed how casual she is when she talks about these sort of things, and the projection that they put on the right, saying that, you know, we're the racists, we're this, we're that, when in fact, the fact of the matter is that they've always been the racists. They're the ones who vote racism. They're the ones that promote the race baiting. They're the ones that always seem to bring up race. So you tell me. Another free pass? Yeah, likely it's Hillary Clinton, right? She gets a free pass on everything. And I think that's the bigger point. It wasn't so much that it wasn't just an off-the-cuff statement. It was the fact that nobody cared. Had President Trump said the same statement, he would have got ridden out on a rail. We all know that, right? Ignorance is bliss. And then we get this YouTube link right here. And it takes you over to the YouTube page of the U.S. Department of State. This was published back on June 28, 2010. Secretary Clinton comments on the passing of Robert Byrd, and she talks about how he was her mentor, like it said in the graphic, and how he helped her state out when she was in New York, which she was never really a resident of. But you get the idea. It's about a 2.5 minute video, and I'm not going to play it for you because I'll spare you all of that. And then Q gives us this. You are being controlled and fed a false narrative. Well, we knew that. And then we've got a few hashtags here that we can work with. Take back control. Facts matter. Sheep no more. Q. Well, to Miss Clinton and the rest of the deep state, I've got a message for you too.
When I'm done with you, my mom's going to pick me up and take me home.
Yeah, I got to be home in time for dinner. Post 2400, 51 minutes after the hour of 3 p.m. We get this Twitter link right here. Q says, eyes on VIP Patriot. Takes you to the Twitter link of ABO Warrior, who gives us this pic right here. Not only at the Trump rally tonight, but directly behind the podium. What a cool picture that is, huh? Wow, very cool. So this ABO Warrior had some other posts here. Oh my goodness, I'm about to cry. I cannot believe this. I feel I'm dreaming. I got mentioned by Q. Yeah, super cool. How about that, huh? Look for this behind the president. And there's his SEAL trident right there. I'm assuming he's a former team guy. So, hoo-yah to you, my friend. Folks, I'm just an everyday patriot who happened to be at the rally tonight. I have no idea why Q posted my tweet. I am nobody special with no special knowledge. What amazing series of events tonight. I am trying to process it all. Well, don't sell yourself short, patriot. Says again, I wish I could go through and like every single post, but there are literally hundreds and hundreds of comments. I'm overwhelmed. So thankful to be part of this movement. Hoo-yah, God, what a time to be alive. Yeah, sounds like a team guy to me. Very cool, Patriot. Congratulations for getting your your head in there. He was standing behind Trump at the rally, and you could see his hat right there. And he, of course, gave us the forewarning there. So thank you very much for that. What another cool story. And, of course, President Trump was at just yet another rally. He's doing like 11 rallies in, 6 or 7 days, something like that. An absolute breakneck pace, but we all know exactly how important this whole thing is. We've got to win these midterms if we ever want to see that Whopper with cheese really come to the light of day. Those are your Q posts for you today. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. And if you are new to my channel, please keep in mind that you will be unclicked, unliked, and unsubscribed. Thanks to all of you who have been doing that already. I greatly appreciate it. And all my links are down below to my Gab, my Brighteon.com, my BitChute. All that stuff is down below. If you'd like to support the channel, my Patreon link is also down below. I greatly appreciate the support. And you can always find me over here at IPOT 1776. That's at IPOT 1776. Incidentally, thanks to all of you who started this thread here going, you guys got some great memes here. Read carefully. This thread is for clean memes only, and thanks guys for keeping it clean. For some of the past threads, you guys were not keeping it clean. You really did this time. Thanks so much. I said cursing, sexual overtones, or violence earns you a block. Show some class. The world needs it. And you guys really did, and some of these are great. Thanks, Eric. I love this very first one right here. Ben and Jerry's Orange Man Bad. I am literally shaking. These are brilliant, and you guys always come through. So thanks very much. If you're not following me on Twitter, please do at IPOT 1776. And of course, that link is down below too. All right, guys, that's all I got for you today. This is Sir Patrick Mack. And until next time, stay a winner.